So one of the other things that I think that it's important for us, and I've talked about it quite a lot today, it's developing your essential behavior skills. You know, we feel when we, at least I can speak for myself, there were several years, many years, where getting enough sleep was a real issue for our family. And in terms of developing your essential behavior skills is how can you work on the way you communicate to support your child in the way that he or she needs it. So writing skills are key to good advocacy. I want to talk to you first about the therapeutic letter or email. This is, you are really outraged by something that's happened. Either, you know, it could be preschool, it could be daycare, it could be at school, it could be at the rec center, who knows. So when you come home, that's racing through your head and it's really, you're very, very angry. So I often recommend writing it down in what I call the therapeutic email. Now, in the to line, you do not put the person's name in case you accidentally hit send, and that's really a bad idea. Put your own name in the to line, okay? Put your own name in the to line, write that email, then you can go to sleep, right? Because you've kind of vented. And that way the grammar doesn't have to be great. You can be abusive, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to send it, right? Then you're going to get up in the morning and you're going to think about whether you really want to send that email. And you might, again, not send it that day. You might work on it for a few hours, polish it up. Then you send it to a friend whose judgment you trust and say, take a look at this, please. And they'll cut it down by about 50% and bring it down a notch and, you know, and take out the best bits and all that kind of stuff. Listen to them. This is very important because you want it to be actually much more businesslike. You want to convey the information in a constructive way with a positive goal in mind. What do you want? So at the end of the email that you actually do send, or the letter, and actually it's better to send it as a letter if it's really important, because a letter still carries more weight than an email. You can send it as an attachment to the email, that's fine, but I prefer letters. That is, you know, you make very clear in the first line, what is it that you want, right? And again at the end, what, you know, this is what I want, and when you would appreciate having a response by, and it won't be tomorrow, but I'd really appreciate a response by next Wednesday, or what, you know, whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? So give some timelines, be constructive, document, and do not be abusive. All that stuff you've gotten rid of in your first overnight venting email. And there's some really good stuff. We've got there's a Wright's Law. It's a great website with some draft letters there to help give you some ideas about letters that you could write. It is an American website, so be careful that you're not using American law or anything. But the ideas that they have are good for giving you some inspiration. Now, there's two approaches to letter writing. I've used them both extensively. There's the blaming approach, usually angry with a negative tone, filled with you statements, and it alienates the reader. So, imagine when you're writing a letter that someone's going to pick it up who doesn't know anything about you, your child, or the circumstances. You want to come across as a reasonable person, right? You don't want to sound crazy. You might feel crazy because something awful has happened and you've been warning them about it for years and now it's happened and you're really very upset. Still, it's not in the interest of your child to really lose it. So you're going to be calm, but you're going to really tell the story of what happened as briefly as you can. And don't go into every kind of highway and byway. Try and hit the high spots. You're going to be assertive, you're going to be descriptive, you're going to be clear. So you can say, I'm very concerned because today I had this experience, you're being factual, I had this experience at my child's preschool, and then tell the story succinctly. You're going to be diplomatic. You're not going to say, I'm sure this is because such and such teacher really hates children with blue eyes or red hair, or this is all kind of a conspiracy. Like, you're not going to go there. In fact, it might be her problem or his problem. No, I don't think that's the issue. So you're really trying to be very factual, very calm, because if you start making accusations that are implausible, it brings down, even though they may be true, but if you can't prove them and they're implausible, then you bring down your credibility. And so I tell you, one very nice parent I knew well some years ago, and she'd been in a parents group that I had been running in my community. And I said to her one day, I ran into her in the street, and I said, "How are things going?" She said, "Oh, not so well. Had a pleasant time, with my child's teacher." And I said, "Well, what happened?" And she said, "Well, he has very difficult behaviors, and there was a couple of incidences, and she stopped me in the playground and started telling me all the stuff he'd done. And, she was kind of, I felt, I was kind of tired, and I said to her, well, he might be, she said, I was really upset. And so I said to her, I said, well, he might be badly behaved, but he's not ugly like you are. I said, wow. She said, yeah, I really wish I hadn't done that. I said, yeah. And of course, what happened then was that from then on, the issues that she had and her attempts to have them resolved all went out the window. And it was all about what she had said, right? And and that she knew as soon as those words came out of her mouth, right? And so it's that sort of inside voice, keeping it zipped, and listening and going away and thinking about it, and talking to people and writing it down and trying to be reasonable when you respond. It's not easy.
She was probably feeling pretty attacked, though, the way you're describing it.
Of course. But the point is, the comment was she was feeling very attacked. Absolutely. But the point is, no matter how attacked you feel, if you want to be a good advocate, you don't respond in that way or in any way that can be seen as personally an attack. And, who wants to be told they're ugly? I mean, it's not, we all know it's not appropriate, it's not effective, but it's a very extreme example, and I share it with you because it's the more subtle things, of course, that we say that often have the same response. Because the human nature is, let's talk about something that is, I don't want to deal with the issues that you're bringing to the table, so I'd like to deflect it to something else. And that often causes us to lose our way in terms of advocacy. Like, where are we going to go with that? So being diplomatic and polite and respectful, treating others as you would have them treat you is really important. Even if they're behaving badly, don't lower yourself to it. So when you write a letter, keep your goal in mind. Tell the story of why you're concerned, write chronologically. One of the things that I see, and write as though the person you're speaking to, write as though it's being read by people who have no idea. Write it as a journalist, almost, right? Who, what, where, when, why. So that anyone, if you're going to appeal, and this is going to be part of the documentation that goes up within the school district or the Ministry for Children and Family Development, that documentation stands alone. Right? It is a document of what happened, at least from your perspective. Strip out the emotions and judgments. So you're not going to talk about how you're sure that they really are hostile to, children with purple hair or those who are over 6 feet high or anything like that. You're just talking about the facts, what the concerns you have, and how you want it resolved. Never threaten, negotiate. That's really important. You're negotiating for your child. Never send off the first draft in a hurry. Allow time for cooling off and revisions, and get a friend to read it and advise on clarity. For email, single subject messages are best. So put what you're going to talk to, say for example, incidents on playground, December 5th. That's your subject line. That's all you're going to write about, and you're going to write about it succinctly. Yesterday, Sammy came home from school with a black eye. He says that he was hit by another child. Could you please, because I'm not sure exactly what happened, could you please find out what the circumstances were, and could we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss it? Right? So those are, you're not prejudging the situation, you're giving them time, you're not making any accusations, but you're asking, I want to know what happened, and I want to have a meeting about it. So again, watch the send button. Don't put the person's name in the to line until you're ready to send. Shall I say that again? No. Okay. Keep your intended audience in mind in terms of language choice and formality. Don't start off with hi there. This is, you're talking about your child. If it's important enough to write an email or to write a letter, keep it businesslike, because that indicates that you're serious about the issues. Identify yourself and your child clearly. So, give your name, your child, and what you're writing to the principal. Don't assume that he knows. He probably knows your child quite well, but do not assume that he does, because remember, this letter may go up elsewhere. So you're trying to document how you've dealt with this issue. Never insult or criticize people or third parties without giving them an opportunity to just respond. So you can say, this happened, I don't know what the circumstances are, but I would like an opportunity to meet with the person involved. Or I'd like to discuss with you what kind of support you have in the playground at recess time, how it was possible that, Sammy has a black eye and his clothes were covered in mud and there's a big tear in his trousers and whatever, right? So you're not saying, I know that your classroom or your playground assistants weren't doing their job and look what happened. You're asking for information. You're trying to clarify. Don't send it, the first letter on this respect, don't send it to the superintendent of schools, the Ministry of Education, the Premier, and the Queen. Okay, so keep it like, choose your CC line carefully. And if you do have to go there, that's fine, but you don't start there, right? You're always looking reasonable. You're always trying to find the answers. Don't use emoticons like little smiley faces and stuff. That's not professional. Avoid flaming. This is so important. And I think I've said it 3 times already, but don't fire off a response in haste. Give yourself time. If the email exchange is getting nasty, try a phone call. Again, if you're just trying to make your point and battle things out in email, then you can make you've done a great job. You're probably a better communicator than whoever you're talking or writing to. But are you getting to where you want, which is a resolution that's going to help your child? So really what you're trying to do is negotiate. And sometimes quite frequently email can be our enemy in that case, right? Because it brings out the worst in people. We don't see the nice person sitting in front of us who most of the time is pretty good and is actually a human being. It's just an email address and we're venting. So be careful. Sometimes picking up the telephone or saying, I am quite concerned. Can we meet and discuss this? And then follow up with a message saying, it was really great speaking with you. I understand your perspective. However, I'm still concerned and I would like to have a meeting with the principal now. You're not making it personal. You're not making it nasty. And again, try and keep your opinions as much out of it as you can and focus on the evidence or facts. So for example, for the last week, I haven't been able to get Sammy to go to school. Every time I try and get him ready in the morning, he's screaming, crying, falling on the ground. I think there's something going on here. I don't know what the facts are. Has anything been happening in the school that I need to know about? You're saying what you see. You're asking questions. You're not making accusations, but it's your role to question what's going on.